I'm Margaret Ann Windsor, kidnapped in 41, aged 2 and brought to Moulton, Alabama. And it's who was involved in it, who my parents are, is the reason this has never been prosecuted, and the Illuminati-controlled mafia won't tell. Well, they are mafia. The global government won't tell it. They control your media. What I want to tell, I've been telling about mind control murders. I found out about my kidnapping in late '83. I was doing a book on medical malpractice and about mind control murders, how you can program a person to kill. And this, I'm watching, I just want to skip to this. This mind control I've told about, and this is Dr. Oz. I'm watching. I don't usually watch him, and I wonder why, because he seems like a very nice person. Hope he doesn't mind me showing this young fella, because this guilt-ridden. And I think that's enough. I turned the sound down. This is one of the subjects in this. I found out and was doing mind control book about Tesla files that were stolen in 1930. It's where you can create an illness or cure it, heart attack, strokes, cancer. So you see what this would do to your medical profession, because they've always had a cure. But you can program people that would not kill, would not hurt a fly, but you can program them. This myth that you can't do that is a friggin' lie. Now then, I got a letter from the FBI. I was writing about Congressman Larry McDonald, who's a doctor in Atlanta. He went down. Well, I won't tell all this because it's up on YouTube and Facebook. I put it so many times. And here's a young fella that they adopted. This man sounds like a wonderful person, and he's hurting a lot. And I won't get into the rest of the mind control. Larry Flint was one of them that was shot by a program shooter. But, and I'm going to mention this because they're forensic pathologists at Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald that tried to have me killed. I'd written a case about him, and it's the doctors involved, and the fact that it's mind control, programming people and heart attacks. And the one man, and when I was working for the doctors who meant for me to, they knew I was doing the book and everything, he had put a chip in a heart bypass, and this man worked for Dixon. He was not the owner, but he was chairman of the board. That would be the owner, you'd think, Dixon, Gary Dixon. But anyway, I was working for Forsyth doing the book in '77, worked there a year, and they gave me a good recommendation when I left. But the next job I had, because I had to go back to work to try to finish the book. Oddly enough, it was for Dixon, and they were in produce, and they're not a little bitty with it. Their home office was on Powers Ferry, which was really an expensive place to put your office. But anyway, I was working in their home office there, and I found out about the doc, actually shown papers and stuff by the real bookkeeper, if you want to call her controller or what. But I was working with her. She showed me the insurance forms, and then her husband, and his name was Russell. I can't remember what happened to him. He was killed. She inferred it was part of this mind control. And a chip was put in to Fairshow was his name at Dixon. And you can control their decision making by doing that, or you can kill them or whatever. People don't even want to talk about it. So I put it all up on YouTube and Facebook. People actually hate my guts really because I'm British, and I found out about my kidnapping, and I was telling about that and this too. I didn't kill anybody. I'm a beautiful lady. I wouldn't hurt a friggin' fly, but I've sure suffered more than any human being can even imagine. And my children have my parents and my country. And my mom was an American. She's Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, who is sister to artist Georgia O'Keefe. It's who my father is and who took him down. And they, in this whole thing, before I found out about my kidnapping in '83, I was writing about mind control murders. Larry Flint was shot by a program shooter. Is who programs him. These people, like the Virginia Tech next door, where the young man turned the gun on himself after killing 32 and was programmed to shoot himself. Like in Parkland, he didn't shoot himself, but he was certainly programmed. You can't do this sort of thing. They're done in patterns deliberately because it's invisible. Mind control murders are. So that's as far as I'm going to go, because I was watching this just now and I thought about, there's one particularly, this is how it's used too. This was young father in Cobb County, Marietta, Georgia, where I wrote the book and used to live back then. Well, I was almost killed there April Fool Day of 80 and had a letter from the FBI June the 23rd of 79, ongoing investigation, national security involved. And they were stacking them. So now then, all this has been a horror story, and Dr. Oz has really had a good program. I wish I had watched him before, but this one deals with a few things that were done to me, like the first part of the program, and then this one, he's talking about, well, really it happened to the Cobb County young man who left his son in the car, and they call it forgetting the child. He's under mind control and told to forget the child right out of his memory. And he doesn't even know his program. Now, over the years, I've told how it's done. You can go to mind control. You can Google it. Now, you couldn't back when I was learning about it and trying to tell it. So, this father is in prison now, and his wife tried to say he was a loving father, and I totally believe it because of the names. It was done in patterns too. He's in prison, is my understanding, and this has happened a lot with people, and I can't say all of them were, but this whole thing's been done in mass, like mass shootings and killings, and you can mass armies, mass mind control them. But I want to remember one, Russell Yates' wife down in Houston. She drowned 3 of her children. Can you imagine? Then she was called mentally ill when she wasn't. She was programmed to do it. She wouldn't have done it under any circumstances. At least Russell Yates, and maybe it's because I know what happened, but he stood behind his wife saying she would never do it. She was treated for mental illness, and he's remarried, and I don't know what her life is now. But the young man in Aurora, Colorado, the James Holmes, those Grand Theater shootings, that young man wasn't mentally ill, yet he was put in prison and treated for mental illness. You have to stop the mind control, the programming. That is the most ludicrous thing and most horrible mistakes, and it's not just mistakes, they mean to do it because it's been covered up. But I thought, the people really hate me for telling all this. They really do. They tell me they don't care what happened to me, they don't care about this, they just don't want their children, anything to touch them. Like in it, what law enforcement has done has gotten this pro and con. They can be told to help me or hurt me. They, well, if it weren't for them, I think they'd totally hurt me. But they've gotten either where their children have committed crimes. You can go into what crimes youngsters can commit or teenagers, or the parents have, or if it's a motel, hotel, or living conditions, there's certain health codes. Stop and think about it all, how you can intervene, law enforcement, and say, you either help us this way or we've got something on you, we'll prosecute you. So that's what's been going on, and believe me, it's still going on. It hasn't stopped yet. Dr. Phil touched up Dr. Phil. Well, I like Dr. Phil too. He's one of the decent guys. Dr. Oz. But the two subjects he had on there today, this man loved his child. He would never have hurt the child. You can't fake. I don't care how good an actor are. I don't think you could fake it. He can't fake the tears and things that have happened to him the last years because he left his son a little toddler, cute little fella, in his car. It was the first time he drove the car, drove his, I guess, dropped him off at the nursery or whatever. He thinks he forgot to drop him off, and the child was left in the car, and somebody came and that worked with him and said, "Do you have a doll in the car?" He went out, and the child was dead, and it's destroyed the man. And I stop and think, and don't tell me if you watch this. I've lived it. I've lived with the smacks in the face and the horror done to me because I was telling this, and you can prove some of them. And Scott Peterson's on death row out in California for the murder of his wife, Lacey, and unborn child, Connor. Mrs. Yates went to a mental hospital, and I don't know if they found her guilty anyway. Can you even get with the idea, if you thought you killed your child and you loved your child more than anything in this whole friggin' world, do you have any idea what that would do to you? Now that I've told all this, and really people don't want it told because they're Americans, and they don't really care what they did to me, and part of my family's sorry sites too over in England. I usually put Larry Flint, Hustler magazine, because I ran in a campaign to replace one of the doctors, Larry McDonald, congressman doctor, who had gone down in the plane. I put all that up, the KAL from Juneau, Alaska to Seoul, South Korea. Isn't it odd that his plane goes down, Nixon's taken off of it, all these people involved in the kidnapping of me and cover-up, and then before I find out about it, I start finding about the mind control murders and start telling about them. So I'm going to stop here because it kind of got to me, the father feeling so guilty. And when he goes for help because of the guilt and I assume depression and everything, you could tell this caused from it. The doctors, even if they knew, are not going to tell about mind control. But they start telling this and this and trying to explain it. And he tries to explain it to himself, how it happened. Of course, nobody's told him, just like the young man at Parkland, Florida. He's going to be on death row. He's living a pain that you can't believe. I've been putting this on YouTube and Facebook since 2012 and 2013 on YouTube. So I put up 3-4 YouTubes a day. My life has been hell between running me from here to there and making a pauper and keeping me without a place to live. The media all knows this. The local media, the national media has known about my kidnapping since it happened. I've put letters from Jack Hartsfield, who's deceased now 2 years ago. He was FBI, but he was also undercover FBI and worked for newspapers. He knew so much about what was going on. And he sent letters to me over the years specifically for me to use, to put up on, to go to the media. He couldn't even get the media to touch it. There are murders like, I'm going to put this one up. This is at Redstone Arsenal, or Huntsville I was taken to Moulton when I was kidnapped, Alabama, about 45 miles from Huntsville. It became the space industry. And Redstone Arsenal Command Center is much more than people think. But anyway, Jack was writing about that. And I'm just going to mention one of the murders I know of. I worked for the district attorney, Fred Simpson, there, Madison County DA. Woman I was living in a motel, and I'm leaving out, almost being killed and all this, April Fool Day of 80. Her name was Bonnie Saylor. She knocked on my door and she told me who she was, and she knew who I am. And she said, "Will you please go on my behalf to your district attorney?" She says, "I've tried to talk to him. She has gone everywhere," she said. I don't remember all that she mentioned. Nobody would help her. She says, "Will you please help me?" And I thought, lady, you don't know what's been done to me. I was told to keep quiet, but my children are gone. My home's gone. I was almost killed in a horrible way. And by the way, the same thing happened to two Cobb County connected law enforcements. One was in Forsyth County, excuse me, were killed the same way. So how I survived it, if you call it surviving, I don't know. It's a hell in itself. But anyway, I did go to one of the churches, and I'm going to tell who I went to. It's Whitesburg Baptist, Whitesburg Drive. And I had gone there also because I couldn't pay my rent. I was just after well, I didn't get that much at Fred. The odd thing about this, I had just finished school. I went back to school after I did the book. Part of it was to train on the computers. They were just coming in, and you should see the computers then and the computers now. But I I graduated from that in I don't know, the fall of 1999. Am I missing the dates here? 1979, excuse me. I was almost killed April Fool Day of '80, and then transported across state line to Huntsville. And when I went to work for Fred Simpson, this is what's wrong with this picture. I'd graduated from word processing 9 months, and I retook bookkeeping, I guess you could say, refresher course. And I go to work for the district attorney like a junior would go to work, passed a background check in the condition I'm in, and done the book and all that. In Simpson, I never knew it was like Clue in the Patterns. Later I'd find out that my father, history would tell you, married Wallace Simpson, the spy, and became the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, which is a lie. My father was married to my mom, Claudia Ruth O'Keefe. They were still alive and married each other October of '86. And I mean, they stole my father's identity to where he was, and my mom. Uh, it's horrible with character assassination. Then they kidnapped me, so I'm getting away from what I was going to say. But when at Simpsons, Fred Simpson's, they made me go back to a school, put me in a junior position, and I had pretty good references, bookkeeping, all that. Worked for doctors and. Anyway, I had to go back to a school on computers. It was the memory typewriter thing. And what's wrong with this picture? There's no reason I had to go back to school for that or anything. But anyway, I guess I'll make a long story short here. It's been putting all this up and really trying to fight to get my father's name cleared. I mean, history has it a total lie, and my mom, what happened to me, and my name back, and my children, horror stories that were done to them here, and the UK, for God's sake, the Brits. There were Brits that remembered me and didn't forget me. And I don't know now, it's been a while. I see what's happening there. Elizabeth's part of the people that kidnapped me, the Illuminati, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Kennedys, Roosevelt, the president. So he was the one in '36 appointed JFK's father, Joe, ambassador to England. Winston Churchill was a part of it all. He burned the Windsor Files. But when I see people like this man hurting so much with what I've tried to tell, because I don't know for sure this man. I didn't get his name and background, so I don't know if he's one that was programmed to forget the child, but it sure sounds like it. And nobody's ever bothered to address the mind control. They're calling the shootings, you control gun control. You're supposed to, nobody's ever